I've had viewers ask me this for a long time, and, well, it's finally time. Today, we are going to pit two of the two biggest Call of Duty developing studios against each other. Treyarch versus Infinity Ward. And you have my word, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you my choice for my favorite studio, and this is not easy to do. So you guys let me know in the comment section, do you prefer Infinity Ward games or do you prefer Treyarch games? And let's let the debate begin. Do me a quick favor, everybody. If you enjoy the content, make sure you drop a like, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and turn on those post notifications. Ring that little bell so you get a notification whenever a new Chaos video goes live, so you can get the ever so important first comment. Okay, we're going to start off with art style. It is no secret that Infinity Ward and Treyarch have some pretty insane differences in their Call of Duty development, but what really sets them apart? Well, their art style. Looking back on the two developers' histories, there are plenty of obvious visual differences between them, even when their games are in similar settings. Ever since the first Black Ops, Treyarch's visual style has been a lot brighter and a lot more colorful than Infinity Ward, who usually sticks to a more grounded color palette with shades of gray and brown and very few bright, solid colors. And that transitions nicely into the next point. Tone. I think the main reason why Treyarch likes to go for brighter colors while Infinity Ward sticks to darker, more common colors is because Infinity Ward tends to set their games in a more realistic world, while Treyarch gets a little more experimental with the boundaries of reality in their games. Just look at the track records, alright? Treyarch has done Black Ops, which was a series of brainwashing, wacky specialists, futurist weapons, and vehicles, and characters with super out there personalities and lines. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, Infinity Ward has stuck mainly to a more modern-feeling game that is either set in the present day or the near future, with the exception of Infinite Warfare. But even that game still featured the tone of one of the older Infinity Ward games. It was just in a different setting. Treyarch games tend to be a little more light-hearted and wacky, while Infinity Ward seems to keep things just a little more serious and grounded. Campaign consistency. Speaking of characters, let's talk a bit about campaigns. This one's kind of tricky, because if you look back during the Modern Warfare and the BO1 and BO2 days, there was a bit of a debate over which studio actually made better campaigns. But starting with the 8th console generation, I think everybody's going to agree that Infinity Ward has the upper hand when it comes to the single-player offering. Since the console generation changed, Infinity Ward has released Ghost and Infinite Warfare, two games that did not get great overall reception, but most everybody will agree they had amazing campaigns. However, Treyarch has released Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, one of which had a pretty horrible campaign and the other one didn't have a campaign at all. So if you're looking at the modern Infinity Ward, modern Treyarch, it's pretty clear which one still has their storytelling chop intact. But if you go back, man, it was neck and neck. Okay, here we go. This is not going to be easy to do, but I'm going to do it. Multiplayer consistency. Now, Infinity Ward may be more consistent when it comes with campaigns. Multiplayer, that's another story. Again, back in the old days, both studios had great multiplayer experiences in the form of Modern Warfare. The trilogy, they both had World at War and the first two Black Ops games. But then, when the console generation changed and we crossed over into the current Call of Duty era, things got a little sloppy. Again, since the console generation changed, Infinity Ward has released Ghosts and Infinite Warfare, while Treyarch has released BO3 and BO4. But unlike the campaign debate, which is pretty one-sided, this one's a little tougher. On one hand, Black Ops 3 had a very well-received multiplayer, and Black Ops 4, well, it started strong. But then on the other hand, BO4 has seriously fallen off since launch. But on the third hand, Infinity Ward's two latest games didn't exactly have great multiplayer offerings either. But then on the fourth hand, both Ghost and Infinite Warfare now have a cult following of players who insist that they were underrated and they were too harshly criticized. So I want to know, what do you guys think? Does Infinity Ward or Treyarch make better multiplayer now? This is one of the categories that I can't declare a winner on. I don't know. Third modes. Ever since COD started doing a third mode, Treyarch and Infinity Ward have had very different approaches. Treyarch has always done a zombies mode, and they probably always will do a zombies mode, but Infinity Ward, they've stretched out a little bit. They started with Spec Ops in Modern Warfare 2, then they tried out survival mode in Modern Warfare 3, then they tried out Extinction in Call of Duty Ghosts, and then they tried their own version of zombies in Infinite Warfare. So this one is hard to judge because on one hand, Treyarch is very consistent with putting out quality zombie modes, but on the other hand, not everybody likes zombies mode, and Infinity Ward generally offers a lot more variety in their third mode since they're not always going to follow the tradition. You could also argue that Extinction in Ghosts wasn't that great, while BO3 Zombies was great, but then again, you could argue the other half. The BO4 Zombies wasn't that great, while Infinite Warfare Zombies, a lot of people actually enjoyed. So this is another one of those categories where I don't think I can declare a winner. I really don't. I want to know what you guys think. Does Infinity Ward or Treyarch make better third modes? And I know the popular opinion is probably going to be Zombies, but if you think about it and you get into it a little deeper, it's not that easy of an answer. At number 5, hit detection. Now this one is pretty obvious. I will have a definitive answer on this. Infinity Ward's hit detection is infinitely better than Treyarch's at this point. Now, honestly, I'm not sure how this came to be since their games are made on essentially the same engine, but despite all the flack Infinity Ward gets on their multiplayer, the one thing that everybody always agrees on is their hit detection is excellent. While Treyarch's multiplayers may be better received, but their hit detection often feels very inconsistent, especially in BO4. Again, I have no clue how this came to be if you play, but if you play modern Infinity Ward games and you play a modern Treyarch game, it's extremely noticeable which one has the better hit detection, and hopefully Treyarch figures this out soon because I can't think of a good reason why there's such a difference between them. Game pace. One thing that people don't talk about very much is the pace of each studio's games. Modern Warfares have always been an extremely fast-paced game with super quick times to kill, and Ghost was arguably even faster than that. Infinite Warfare was also a super fast game as it was essentially just Black Ops 3 but on smaller maps and quicker movement. Meanwhile, on the other end, Treyarch games have always been a little more slower and methodical than Infinity Ward. Not only are the times to kill slightly longer, but BO4 even amped up the player health to make gunfights significantly longer. So if you go ahead and mix in the fact that Infinity Ward's map design often encourages constant engagements, while Treyarch's map design often encourages slower play and often encourages camping, you've got a pretty clear difference between the way the two studios approach the pacing of a COD multiplayer experience, and this one is subjective. It all depends on if you like a slower pace or if you like a faster one. Ooh, map design. Woo! While we're on the topic of pacing, let's get into map design. Now, every COD game recently has been fixated on this idea of 3 lanes. Treyarch and Infinity Ward have really different approaches to how they actually create these 3 lanes and how those lanes interact with each other. Looking back, Treyarch's map design has been much more straightforward than Infinity Ward's. All you have to do is compare the map design in BO3 to the map design in Infinite Warfare. Almost all of BO3's maps featured 3 very distinct lanes with very little deviation from this design philosophy, but IW, well, they took the 3-lane design but added more routes between the lanes and also had a heavier emphasis on verticality. Heck, we can go back even further. We can compare the map designs in MW3 to BO2. Modern Warfare 3 had some very wacky map designs and some maps that completely abandoned the 3-lane design, while BO2's maps were all very good but also very safe and by the numbers. Generally speaking, Infinity Ward takes a bit more risks with their map design, which leads to some really interesting and great ones, but it also leads to a lot more stinkers like Stonehaven. Community management. Now, Treyarch used to be the best COD developer in a lot of people's eyes when it came to community management and engagement. It's no secret. Well, that's not the case at the moment. When people were upset about Infinity Ward and their handling of Infinite Warfare, they were constantly in communication on Twitter with the fans and trying to adjust the game accordingly to make sure people would better enjoy it. But when people are upset about BO4 bugs, gameplay design, and lack of content, well, Treyarch went radio silent for a while. In fact, Vondi has even made some pretty controversial statements on Twitter in response to fans, including his complete shutdown of people asking for the VSAT to be added to Black Ops 4. Treyarch doesn't really seem to be in that zone at the moment with their community management like they used to be, and we don't know how Infinity Ward will handle the community following the release of their next game. So it's kind of hard to believe it can get any worse for Treyarch because, I don't know. I mean, and looking back, I have friends in both of the, well, I have friends that have been there and friends that are there. I have met acquaintances in both community management. And on the core level, the people at these studios are nothing short of amazing and phenomenal. I'm talking more about the massive engine that turns when it comes to the developing studios and how quick they are with things. But when it comes to the actual employees, man, there's some superstars in both studios. And finally, risk taking. I mentioned before that Infinity Ward will take more risks in their map design, but put simply, Treyarch takes way more risks everywhere else. All you have to do is take a look at the various elements of what makes up a COD game and compare Treyarch to Infinity Ward. Now, IW's campaigns are often very straightforward and grounded. Treyarch's, well, they cover more outlandish things like brainwashing, alternate histories, and branching storylines. IW continued down the Modern Warfare theme for 4 games. Treyarch, well, they were constantly jumping between the Vietnam War, the Cold War, World War II, and the near future. While Infinity Ward was keeping their multiplayer by the books and safe, Treyarch was experimenting with the Pick-10 system and the introduction to specialists. So put simply, Treyarch takes a lot more risks with their game design as a whole, and while those experiments may not always work out in their favor, they're doing it. Not everything is going to stick, but the ones that do stick can often be great additions to the series. So there you have it. I didn't want to get to the end of this. Those are 10 main things that separate Infinity Ward's COD style from Treyarch's COD style. Both studios are extremely talented and capable of making amazing games, but when you have 2 studios working on one of the biggest franchises in gaming, obviously, you're going to create somewhat of a rivalry. So be sure to let me know, which one do you think is best? And as promised, also, would you guys like me to do a video comparing Sledgehammer to one of the other COD developers or both of them? All right, I promised you that I would pick one and I would not sit on the fence. So I am going to go. This is so hard, because there's so many reasons I could pick both. But in the end, I'm going to give the slightest edge, okay, to Infinity Ward. And it is because of the older games. The Modern Warfare Trilogy, 1, 2, and 3, they're just some of the best storytelling and best multiplayer experience I've ever had. I mean, Black Ops 1 is my favorite game of all time, okay? So it was close, but that's where I'm at. You guys let me know what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.